Hi, this is James from Mississippi again. Thought I'd do a little follow-up from my last video. This is showing the beginning of my battery box construction for the middle battery box. It holds 5 batteries. It sits in the extended cab of my truck behind the front seats. The main problem I had here was that the floor was not level, and there were a lot of little things I had to get around just to get the rack to fit in there. Beside the rack, I also wanted to put my charger units. It took a little engineering to get them in there. Eventually ended up cutting some holes in the floorboard down to the underlying frame members, and these are the angle irons coming up. I did this so I could tie the battery box into the frame, because those 5 batteries weighed about 500 pounds and they needed a pretty substantial support system. And this also allowed me to level out the floor somewhat so that there wouldn't be any slamming or slipping of the boxes. And these are once again more pictures of the angle iron coming through the floorboard. I'd also like to mention that soundproofing you saw down there does ignite quite easily when you weld. And this is where the angle iron's actually welded to the frame and coming up through the base of the floorboard. Next, I had to do a little plastic welding. This is something I'd never done before. Polypropylene is relatively easy to weld together if you have one of these little kits. They're made by Harbor Freight. I think it's 29 bucks. I borrowed it from one of my friends and just bought a few little replaceable rods. And if you'll see here on the next picture, I just welded 2 pieces of polypropylene together, and that was a strong weld. I was impressed with the way it worked. And you can see how I've got my 2 chargers. The NG3 is on top and the NG5 is on the bottom. There's plenty of space in between for them to ventilate while they're working. And see, I've got some brackets holding them up, keeping them apart and supporting their base plates. In order to get the base plates, in order to get the chargers to sit flat on the base plates, I had to countersink those hex head bolts into the plastic. I just did this by simply melting them and pulling them through. It was very easy. This is after I've got the carpet reinstalled, and you'll see a little fan in the floor. This is to ventilate all the hydrogen sulfide gases that are emitted while the batteries are being used, either charging or discharging. And I think I'm getting ready. There it is. The battery rack's actually going in. It's being bolted down. It's bolted to the angle irons coming up, which are welded to the frame. It's a very secure setup. I should also mention that rack is very heavy, and I had to take it in and out of there about 20 times before I got it where I wanted it. It's quite a workout. Next, you'll see some of my plastic work. This is PVC, sheets of PVC, 1/8 inch, fairly heavy duty, inexpensive, easy to work with. I was able to cut it out and shape it to fit snugly against the floor, side walls, and back wall. And then I had just enough room to get my hands in the back so I could work on the components and the wires coming through there. And there's the top of it, the final paint job, I believe. And I think in a previous picture I'd shown you the piano hinges. This thing opens up wide enough so I can actually set the batteries straight down in there. There's the painted racks for the charger units. And this is the charger inlet for the 120 volt charger. Rather than having a plug sticking out, I wanted something I could cover up because it's sitting on the front of the truck, and I wanted it to kind of be watertight. And that's why I chose this method. And there's a 240 volt plug that comes out of the filler cap door. And you'll see that the wiring loom runs down the inside of the bed of the truck and then along the frame, then back up underneath the frame into the cab where it goes into the chargers. Pretty easy setup. And there you can see I've got the grill back on the front of the truck so that the charger inlet for the 120 volt is well hidden. I have a little adapter that I made of that. It's got 2 male-ended plugs and simply hooked into an extension cord. These are the aluminum angle iron pieces that I used to build the base for the plate that will hold the controller unit and all of the wiring that I put in a single box. When you build one of these things, it's nice to get all your wiring together in as compact an area as possible. That way you can enclose it and know right where everything is. It's easy to trace things down that way, especially if you make them different colors. This is when I was making the plate to put these components on, I used a piece of cardboard as a template, and I cut it until I got it where I wanted it roughly, and then I cut my piece of aluminum and shaped it and finished it and cut, and it took a little while, but I finally got pretty much so where I wanted it. Then I started putting the components on top of it. This takes a lot of time, just back and forth, moving things around, figuring out where you want them, drilling holes, and mounting them. I've actually polished the plate and rounded off all the edges. That aluminum is pretty sharp. If you smooth it off, you'll cut yourself. This is simply an electronics box that I picked up at a local electronics supply store. I actually bought 5 or 6 different sizes of boxes, and this is the one I decided on. Took the other ones back. The guys at the store knew what I was doing. There's no problem bringing them in and out. There I'm just trying to figure out where I'm placing the components inside of the box, and later in this video you'll see where they've ended up. I think this is a picture of the on the bench. I was just painting the box and mounting it. Hooray, I'm getting close to being done with that part of it. Starting to mount the components in their final positions on the inside. Now we're going back to the back. I started working on the vacuum system for the brakes. This is just a little rack that I set up. There's a piece of PVC that all of my components are sitting on. I use that because it's lightweight, it's easy to drill, you can paint it and make it look nice. There it is being painted and all the holes drilled in it. I think this is the final assembly of the vacuum setup with the pump, the vacuum gauge, and the vacuum switch and reservoir. The tubing you see is actually routed beneath the truck, runs along the frame rail, and you may be able to see a picture of that a little bit later. Here's my pot box connected to the throttle cable. It's very simple connections, nothing to it, and then you see the 2 wires coming. It's actually enclosed with there are 2 wires coming out and going over to the controller unit, and the pot box is completely enclosed. This is back in the charging unit area again. I had to combine the 240 and 120 somehow so that they could share some common wires, and that's what all this is about. It looks like just a jumble there, but if you just follow one circuit at a time, you can put this together without getting too lost. See, some of the wires are going forward, some are going backwards. Those are going forward towards the front of the truck. The green and white ones lead to the 120 charging outlet. You can also see the vacuum tubing there. This is my instrument cluster. Notice there are 2 pods there. One's a single pod and the other's a double pod. This is a little box I made for the fuse. It's a 800 amp fuse that runs in the main line. You need to enclose that in case it ruptures. It will really destroy things around it, and it's just sitting in the back in a little box. Next picture is a little friend that showed up in the middle of the night, kind of scared the crap out of me. And I looked over and there he was eating cat food. Raccoons are not something you want to mess with, so I left him alone until he left of his own accord. Now we're getting a little bit closer. This is still on my bench, but I've got things pretty much so mounted where I want them, including some of the relays and the fuses. You also see my amp meter, my amp shunt is in there. This is my crimper that I use to make all of my connections. It's actually a metric crimper, but a 70 works well on 2/0 cable. That's just where I drilled the connector out. And this is the underneath of my plate with all the nuts sticking out and bolts. And we're coming up towards the end of things. This is basically the final wiring I've got. If y'all have any questions, please don't hesitate to give me a shout. James in Mississippi. Thanks for watching.